What is going on, my dudes and dudettes? Is showing you with SNES Serpentarium. I'm chilling with my male Dumerals boa right now, and today we're going to have a little chat about 5 large beginner snakes. So, something to think about before you get a snake for the first time. You know, can you actually handle it and house it and stuff? With these larger snakes, it's particularly important, okay? Because, you know, they obviously, you know, they get quite big compared to a lot of beginner snakes. So the first recommendation on my list is going to be Woma pythons. Now, I do have Woma pythons, but I don't want to disturb them today because the 3 of them are actually in shed. And they can be a little bit grumpy sometimes when they're in shed. Particularly the male, he's really stroppy when he's in shed. The younger female isn't so bad, but I didn't really want to disturb her. So Woma pythons, they get a decent size, about 4.5 to 6 foot. Sometimes a little bit larger, but not really much larger. They're quite thin bodied. But they're not too thin either. They're not fragile by any means, but they're not too heavy, particularly as adults, even when they've got their full length. They can get a little bit chunkier, like they're quite easy to overfeed, because they've got quite a slow metabolism. They used to eat in primarily reptiles in the wild, so that's something to bear in mind, is to try not to overfeed them. So the next recommendation on my list is going to be Pituophis snakes. So these are the bulls, the pines and the gophers. Now these are a personal favourite of mine. I've never actually kept them, but I've always really liked the look of them, and definitely going to have to get me some one day. What are you doing? Gonna have to get me some one day, just because they're absolutely gorgeous. Now, depending on which sort of species you pick and which subspecies of them you get, that depends on the size. So if you get a San Diego gopher snake, that'll be about 4.5 foot. If you get a bull snake, that'll be about the 7 foot mark, 6 to 7 foot, we'll say. So, you know, they can get pretty big. They're really heavy body. They've got fantastic appetites. They're gorgeous, as we've mentioned. There are a lot of different colour palettes available with them as well. That's something you don't have with the Woma pythons. One thing that scares a lot of people though is they hiss a lot. And it can be a little bit intimidating. It sounds like someone has just punctured a tyre with a knife or something like that. It's just like properly, like going for it. But usually they're all bark and no bite, and they are fantastic to handle. They honestly, like, handling one, it's more like handling a boa than a colubrid. They just grab onto you, and they're just awesome snakes and absolutely gorgeous. So number 3 is actually going to be the Brazilian rainbow boa. Now, these snakes, they've got a little bit of a reputation for being more difficult because of the humidity requirements. Now, I've not actually found that myself to be too much of a problem. So all you've really got to do is keep it on something like cocoa bark, which I've actually got here. Give it a tidy size water bowl, maybe even 2 water bowls, and put one on the hot side and one on the cool side, and a humidity box with some moss in it, and obviously a warm box as well for after it's eaten, and it'll be fine. And then spray it down every day or every other day. I don't like when people say to limit the ventilation. I really don't rate that at all. They still need good ventilation, because otherwise the air becomes stale in their enclosure, and that can cause big problems. So I really don't like that recommendation. So, you know, just watch out, especially when they're babies with them. But yeah, you know, you shouldn't have too many problems if you're on the ball. They get about 4.5 to 6 foot. Some people say they get up to 7 foot. I've only seen one at that size. They're normally at the smaller end of the range. But, you know, they're gorgeous snakes. No one can say otherwise, and they feel really nice and smooth as well, which is absolutely awesome. So the next snake on my list is another colubrid, believe it or not, and it's the Taiwanese beauty snake. Now these are very, very large snakes for colubrids especially. They're not too expensive to buy. I'm in an iron about putting these in here, but to be honest, I think they're amazing snakes, so I thought, well, I'm gonna put them in. They're absolutely gorgeous, really breathtaking to look at. If you have one of these in your living room, people are just gonna come in and go, wow, you know, that's a really gorgeous snake, and they've got a really impressive size to them as well. So I had to put these in there, just for that reason. They can be a little bit snappy, but if you handle them from a young age, they will be okay. You know, I've got other snakes in that group. I've got the Chinese beauty snakes and the Ridleyi, and they're a little bit snappy on times, but my adults now, the Chinese beauties, have calmed down lovely. You know, so if you do handle them with some frequency, you don't even have to handle them every week, but as long as you handle them, you know, after you've calmed them down, or once or twice a month, they'll stay calm for you, and you should be okay. They get to about 8 foot. Some people say they get up to 10 foot. I've never seen one that size, but they do get large. Another honourable mention in this little section is going to be the Vietnamese blue beauty snakes. They're a lot prettier in my opinion. They're longer than the Thais. They're not as heavy bodied, so that's something to bear in mind. And they are harder to find as well. So for me, that's why the Thais won this little gig here. So in first place, probably no surprise to you, we've got the Dumerel's boas. The Dumerel's boas, they're not too big, but they're big enough. And they tend to be really docile as well, and calm and slow moving. Like this boy now, he's pretty much gone to sleep here. He's happy enough where he is, just holding on to me like that. They're great eaters. They're not super active, I'll be honest with you there, probably because they're kept at lower temperatures than most other boas. You're looking at a hot spot of about 85 degrees and a cool end of about 75, so give or take a couple of degrees obviously. So they're not super active. They've got really slow metabolisms, even by boa standpoints. So, you know, and like, I haven't fed mine, believe it or not. This boy hasn't eaten since September. It's now February, middle of February, and he's still looking fine. You know, he's got good muscle tone and stuff like that. He's looking great. The female is actually even chunkier than him, you know, so they do have really slow metabolisms, which is good because it means less frequent cleaning. The downside of these is they are quite hard to get, and they can be quite expensive. So that's sort of why I've got a joint first place with these for the large colubrid, large beginner snakes, and that is BCI boas. Now BCI boas are a lot easier to get hold of than these Dumerels, and obviously if you live in the UK, you've got to bear in mind that these are CITES Appendix 1, but the BCI boas aren't, so you don't have to have any paperwork with the BCI boas. The BCI boas come in a number of morphs. You've got all sorts of different morphs with them, and you've also got localities and stuff like that as well, so there's a lot of wiggle room to play with. The downside is if you get a common boa, which is most likely what you're gonna get, they do get a little bit larger than these, but that's not really too bad of a downside, because at the end of the day, if you want a big snake, you wouldn't be here. If you didn't want a big snake, you wouldn't be here on this video. They are a little bit larger than these, but I think that's both a pro and a con. It depends what sort of size range you're after. In the normal form, they don't hold a candle to these, to be honest, and I don't think any of the morphs are as pretty as these either, but the morphs are still really pretty, and so is the normal form as well, to be honest, just not as nice as these, the Dumerels, and they can be on times a little bit snappier than the Dumerels. So I hope you've enjoyed. Where are you going? I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you for spending some time with me here, having a look at this gorgeous male Dumeril's boa. You know, and listening to me ramble on about nothing for 10 minutes or so. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. And you know, I really appreciate it. If you are new around here and you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe and like the video. Comment down below which of these snakes you think are the best beginner snake, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.